Kia ora, I'm Emma and I work at Auckland Botanic Gardens. I'm the Botanical Records and Conservation Specialist here, and today we're going to talk about myrtle rust and its effects on our native and some of our exotic plants here in the Botanic Gardens. One of our key roles as a botanic garden is in conservation and research as well as education, which is why we're here today. All botanic gardens globally have those three key roles of research, conservation and education, and as part of that we do a sentinel plant network survey, which is kind of like a survey of a range of different plants to look at potential pests and diseases that might affect the plants. And that's an early warning system for out in the field, out in the wild, and even in other countries as to what species get different diseases such as myrtle rust. So here at the gardens we've been running a sentinel survey since 2014, and every month we survey a range of native and exotic Myrtaceae. So these are plants that are affected by myrtle rust. Myrtle rust only affects plants in this family, so that's kind of interesting compared to other rusts, which sometimes have life cycles on other host plants, but it only survives on Myrtaceae. So we've got a range of things like Purakawa, Lophomiris or Ramarama, Syzygium, some exotics like eucalyptus, some exotic syzygiums in the gardens that we check every month and observe whether they've got myrtle rust or not. So far our survey has shown no signs of myrtle rust on any of the sentinel plants. However, interestingly, all our finds at the Botanic Gardens so far, which has been about a dozen, have been on non-sentinel plants. This is probably just by chance. And for example, behind me is a Myrtle carminea, blooming rata, and that's one plant that isn't on our sentinel network, but it's recently got myrtle rust in the last month or so. If you've noticed, the conditions in Auckland have been really good for myrtle rust actually. Those nighttime temperatures don't drop very low, and therefore we have moisture on plants all night, and that's perfect for myrtle rust to show itself. This is Myrtle carminea, or the carmine rata, so it's a native species, and it's got very early infection of myrtle rust. It's on this new growth. It's very fleshy and soft, and you can just start to see the red spots. They're irregular in shape with the yellow pustules forming on top. And then on the underside, if I very gently turn it over and not try to disturb the spores, there are also yellow spores forming on the underside of the leaves. So what do we do when we find myrtle rust here at the Botanic Gardens? There's a few things we do, and the first one is we take some really good photos of them. It's really hard sometimes to get good close-ups, so spend a little bit of time getting quality images, and then we upload them to iNaturalist, which is a website but also a downloadable app, which is free for anyone to download, and it was developed by Scion to help track what we've got in New Zealand, from plants and insects to fungi. And then we follow a decision tree that we've created to help our gardeners understand what they should do, and that takes into account things like, is it a native or an exotic species? Is it threatened in the wild? Is it the only one we have in the garden? What is its kind of horticultural merit? Some plants might not be so horticulturally beautiful, or they might be like this Purakawa, which is Myrtle vibrans, and it's a signature tree here at the Botanic Gardens. We've got lots of them around. So these are the kinds of plants that we might like to protect. Or there might be some that don't have any significance in terms of threat status. They might be super common in other gardens or available from nurseries, and so they might be ones that we choose to remove. And then we record everything that we do around that plant in our plant database so that we know what we've done in the future and learn from that. So I thought I'd show you a range of leaves. On things like Purakawa, it's super common to find lots of different spots, and you can be a little bit confused as to whether they might be myrtle rust or not. Super common to see lots of holes, but there are about 100 different fungi and other things that appear on Purakawa leaves, and they vary across season to season. But I suppose the real tip I have for finding myrtle rust is that really irregular shaped spot, and the spores are on the top and the bottom of the leaf. So a lot of these spots that I've found now are flush with the leaf, they're not raised, and that's a really good indicator that you don't have myrtle rust. They're also really regular shapes, so they're just perfect circles, and that is another way that I know that that's not myrtle rust. Sometimes we'll have leaf insects eat partially through the leaf, and so when there's kind of just a few layers of the leaf still intact, the light shining through it kind of catches it and makes it look yellow, but it is in fact not myrtle rust because it's not raised above and below the leaves. So here's one of our threatened plants of Northland. This is Rata moiha or Metrocerus bartlettii. So there are a number of threatened species around New Zealand. However, this one is already threatened. There's about 12 left in the wild, and it's threatened by possum browsing. And then the introduction of myrtle rust to New Zealand meant that's another threat that we don't really know how myrtle rust will affect this species. But we're working at the Botanic Gardens with Ngāti Kuri, which is iwi from the Rohi, where this is from, to conserve this plant through propagation and seed collection. These new leaves are probably the ones that are going to be susceptible, but we're still doing research to find out what the impacts of myrtle rust will be on this plant. This is Syzygium maori or swamp maori. It's another one of our special native species. It's threatened in Auckland, grows on stream sides, and this summer it's really being hit badly by myrtle rust. Lots of flowers, fruits, leaves and stems being infected by myrtle rust. So we're closely monitoring our one here at the Botanic Gardens.